The sun is shining bright on mathematics today, and we're going to start this day by looking at some piecewise functions. All right, so this is how we do this. We're going to type it into Desmos and evaluate a couple of questions. All right, so we have the piecewise function z of x. It gives us two equations, and it also gives us their domain restrictions, okay? That's what these pieces are actually called right over here. Those are domain restrictions. All right, so we're going to break this up. In order to type this into Desmos, we need to break it up into two cells. So I'm going to take the x minus 5, I'm going to type that in. And then right after that, I'm going to open up some brackets. And I'm going to type in x less than, then the equals to key 10. And I'm going to need to close out those brackets. All right. So what we do with the domain restriction is we make sure that as we are working with the domain restrictions, we have to put those in brackets in those pieces. Now, we then just go to the next line, negative x plus 8. And then I'm going to type in that domain restriction, which is the bracket. And then it's going to say x less than 10. Now, what you are going to notice, or x greater than 10, I'm sorry. What you should notice right away is that one has an equals sign and one does not have an equal sign to it. So the first red graph has an equal sign to it. Watch what happens when I trace that graph all the way up to the top. Guess what it does is it gives us 10, 5. It gives us an actual answer, and that's because this is defined. Okay, so this is defined. And then when we go to the other one, what you'll notice is it does not have an equals to sign in there. So if I was to come over here and trace this out, guess what? It has what we consider undefined or an open circle. So I'm going to draw that on there. Put that right there as an open circle and say that it is undefined. Maybe we'll use that in a question or two in just a little while. All right, so now it says find z of 3. Now, whenever we start looking for things like values of z of 3, we have to remember that what it's actually saying is we started with z of x, okay? And it says z of x. Well, x is 3 in this case. So what we're really looking for is the y value is equal to what when x is equal to 3. So what equation do I use? Do I use the red one or do I use the blue one? Well, let's go ahead and just type it in. I'm going to type x equals to 3 in. And what you can see is it crosses the red graph right there. And it crosses the red graph at approximately the value or exactly the value of -2. So it is -2. Well, how could I have read that using the inequality? I know that 3 is less than 10. So that means I would use this equation, or 3 minus 5 equals -2. That's the algebraic way of doing that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and find Z11. Well, which equation do I use for this one? I'm going to turn this one off. Z11. I'm going to type in, well, once again, we're back at the fact that we know that x equals to 11, and we are looking for the y value off the graph. So let's type in x equals to 11. X equals to 11. Notice it is on the blue graph, and it is going to be located at -3. Okay, so z of 11 equals -3. Well, why is it on the blue graph? Well, if I type in 11, right over the x values, 11 is not less than 10, but 11 is greater than 10. So that tells us to use this equation. So -11 plus 8, which is going to be -3. Okay, so let's go ahead and check the next one after that. I'm going to turn this one off. And it says find z of 10. Okay, so z of 10, that tells us that we're going to be looking for when x is equal to 10. So I'm going to say, okay, well, when is x equal to 10? So I type it in, x equals 10. And notice what it does. It goes right through that little undefined section. And then it also goes through the defined section. So what is the answer? Well, if I put in 10 into this second one, 10 is not greater than 10, but 10 is equal to 10. So this one actually works. So I'm going to use 10 minus 5, which is 5. And what will happen is if I trace that out, I go through the undefined. I go through the undefined because that tells us it is not an answer. That's why there's a hole on the graph, a blue hole there that you see. And then if I trace it all the way up to the top, it gives us that value of 5. Now we have one last one, a little bit more complex, and it says of 4z of 3. Well, we've actually done part of this. Okay, all this simply says is to multiply. So I'm going to take 4 times z of 3. Well, we found out z of 3 was already -2. So I type in -2. I do 4 times -2, which is -8. All right, I hope that helps y'all type in, teaches you how to type in piecewise into Desmos with the brackets and the equals, and then also tracing them out to find undefined and defined values on the graph. And then, of course, evaluating a couple of questions. Y'all have a great day. It's beautiful.